Greetings, this is Angelus de Mortiel with another build guide for Dragon Age Inquisition. Today we will be looking at building the Necromancer as a Control Sapper. Classically, the Control is any class possessing abilities that alter the actions of the enemies, typically falling into the realms of inhibiting or debilitating. Sapper classes typically deal in abilities that debuff enemies and deal damage over time, also known as Dee Oh Tee or dots, as opposed to dealing heavy damage up front. The Necromancer really sings at this role and can honestly approach it in about three distinctively different ways. I will focus on one that I personally find to be the most fun, and it seems to be most effective from routine to Perilous, combining a smooth blend of damage over time and crowd control abilities. However, before we continue, I would like to get a certain topic out of the way first: Spirit Mark. Spirit Mark is a rather signature ability of the Necromancer, doing a small amount of damage over time. Then if the enemy dies within the duration of Spirit Mark, that creature is effectively resurrected to fight for you for a period of time. Unfortunately, the follower AI for this ability is extremely poor. Occasionally, you can get an enemy early enough in the battle for it to become undead and fight its former allies, but most of the time the minion either engages in trivial dodging maneuvers or just plain stands there and does nothing. It is for this reason that you will rarely hear this ability recommended to anyone, as it is effectively more of a novelty than actually being of any use. With that said, let's move on to the build. In the Permafrost tree, Winter's Grasp is one of the starting spells for the Necromancer. It instantly freezes an enemy in ice, dealing 200% ice weapon damage and freezing it for about 3 seconds. Once the enemy thaws, it is then chilled for another 8 seconds. Winter's Grasp costs a high 65 stamina and has a 16-second cooldown. Winter's Grasp can then be upgraded with Winter's Chill to spread the damage and chill effect out over an area of 3 meters, but it still only freezes the original target. Fade Step is a favorite dodging ability for many frequent mage players. It quickly propels the Necromancer through the air for a short distance in a moderately controllable trajectory, which allows you to quickly dodge out of the way of danger or straight into the heart of the storm. It is important to note that Fade Step costs no mana, but does have a 12-second cooldown. However, the real utility of Fade Step comes from its upgrade, Frost Step. With this upgrade, any enemy you pass through in Fade Step takes 300% ice weapon damage and is chilled for 8 seconds. This allows you to simultaneously dodge, slow down, and hurt enemies even without any mana. In the Gravelord tree, Horror is one of the 2 first abilities available to the Necromancer, and is frankly one of the best. It is a targetable AoE crowd control ability that inflicts panic on a 3-meter area, making enemies affected run in fear, and can be upgraded with Despair, which causes it to inflict minor amounts of damage over time and debuffs enemy armor. This synergizes well with classes like the Raver or Assassin that have Mercy killing passive that makes them automatically critically hit panicked or sleeping enemies. This skill is perfect as a clutch move to save you or an ally from melee enemies running towards you, or as a means to buy some breathing room from a group of archers. Horror lasts for 6 seconds, costs a moderate 50 stamina, and has a 24-second cooldown. Walking Bomb is the backbone of the Necromancer's arsenal, and will be what does the most work. Walking Bomb launches a curse at an enemy that does 200% weapon damage per second, totaling 2000% weapon damage, and can be toggled off. If the ability is toggled off or the enemy dies, Walking Bomb explodes, dealing 600% spirit weapon damage to any enemy within 5 meters of the original target. This ability costs a high 65 stamina and has a 20-second cooldown. But wait, we're not done. Walking Bomb's real strength comes in its upgrade, Virulent. With Virulent Walking Bomb, if the target is killed while Walking Bomb is active, any enemies within the 5-meter blast radius are also affected with the curse as well, taking similar damage over time, exploding and spreading the curse to enemies within that explosion's blast radius. This absolutely wreaks havoc on grouped enemies and is the most important skill for the Necromancer. As you level her up, I recommend going straight for this skill first. There are several passives that are important to note. Virulence, not to be confused with the Virulent upgrade for Walking Bomb. Virulence causes any negative status effect applied to an enemy to be passed to any enemy within 10 meters if Necromancer kills that enemy. This applies to burning, chilled, frozen, panicked, paralyzed, poisoned, shocked, and or weakened. It is important to note that the Necromancer does not have to apply the status effect, but rather only has to make the kill. This not only works well with Winter's Grasp, Fade Step, or Horror, but also synergizes well with other crowd control classes like the Elementalist. Unsullied Victim. The Necromancer does 25% more damage to enemies with above 50% health. This is an easy choice because 25% is quite a significant bonus, and also because the health threshold mixes well with Virulent Walking Bomb. Death Siphon. This is a must-have passive for the Necromancer. Anytime any enemy near you dies, you regain 10% of your health and 20 stamina. It does not specify what distance nearby is exactly, but I've noticed it to be about 15 to 20 meters. This gives you a significant amount of survivability even in harder difficulties. Power of the Dead. When you kill an enemy, you do 20% more damage for 10 seconds. This again augments Virulent Walking Bomb, as chain explosions will be 20% more damaging. This ability, however, does not stack. Gathering Storm and Clean Burn are amazing and necessary passives for the sustainability. They make it so that practically anything you do decreases the cooldown time of your abilities, lessening cooldowns by a half second per basic attack and 1 second for casting other spells, respectively. Ice Armor is an optional passive that increases your survivability further by reducing damage by 50% when you're near a frozen enemy or in the AoE of the Blizzard spell. However, in our build, this means that staying near an enemy frozen by Winter's Grasp or subsequently frozen by Virulence when you kill a frozen enemy is the way that this is triggered. Calculating is the Necromancer's class-specific passive, granting a +3 to magic, cunning, and willpower. Tricks of the Trade. While many choose the passive Overwhelming Force in the Gravelord tree, which grants a 10% damage bonus to enemies with health lower than your own, I instead use Tricks of the Trade, which grants a 10% bonus to damage and status effect duration to the entire party, with no conditions on enemy health. With this build, the Necromancer has 25 magic, granting 13% attack and 25% barrier damage bonus, 31 willpower, granting 16% attack and magic defense, 16 cunning, granting 8% critical hit chance and range defense, and 13 constitution, granting 65 health and 7% melee defense. The Necromancer's tactics as a Control Sapper are mostly reactionary, but can adapt to a certain extent to a player's preference, either for those wanting to be more aggressive or those wanting to be more reserved. Regardless of variation, any given fight is always best to open with Walking Bomb to an enemy as close to the center of the group as possible. From there, you will want to observe enemy movements. Notice a group of archers at the far end of the room getting ready to riddle your tank with holes? Horror is your friend. See a melee enemy rushing at you or a squishy teammate? Winter's grasp. Enemies closing in on you and one of those enemies has walking bomb whittling down on him? Finish him and chill the others with a circular shaped fade step. While this reactionary style may seem difficult, it's actually more natural to the chaotic environment of a multiplayer game like this. Becoming fluent in situational awareness is your first priority, but the second is knowing the tools at your disposal. Know when to horror versus know when to winter's grasp, and when to fade step out of the midst of a fight or into the middle of it. Learning these two things will make the Necromancer one of the most fun classes you will find. Warning, I'm not responsible for any loud exclamations and evil, maniacal, or otherwise devious laughter ensuing from massive, gory explosions. I don't. Oh my god, yes! That was
Harry,
beautiful!
me?
You have like the best spirit bomb ever right there.
Everything's exploding.
And it was all recorded. As always, if you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, comment, or subscribe. Once again, this is Angelus DiMortiel signing off.